everyone, welcome to Together Church. If you watched our video last week, you saw the big announcement that we are merging our two churches, New Harvest Fellowship and Riverwalk Church, together. And so we are renaming and rebranding and relaunching a whole new church called Together Church. So when you're watching our videos and you're seeing Together Church, I don't want you to be confused. We're just in the middle of this merge and we are so excited. Hey, if this is your first time watching our online campus experience, I would like for you to message and let us know where you're watching from. And if you want to help support what we're doing here at Together Church, you can go to mytogetherchurch.com and give through our online portal there. All right, so today we have a very special guest with us, Jenny Miller with Family Mission Field. Jenny and Sean, her husband, have been friends of mine and my wife's for a very long time. The ministry that they are offering in our area is just incredible, and we're excited that we get to join with them in this process, and I believe that you're going to get excited about the work that they're doing here in our area, and she's going to let you know how you can find out more about what they're doing and how you can support the work that they're doing with foster families in our area. Hey, and we want you to be blessed by her ministry, and we want you to be encouraged, and we want you to find out what you could do to help foster families in our area. So here is Jenny Miller.
Hi, my name is Jenny Miller, and my husband is Sean, and we have 5 amazing kiddos: Jordan, Eli, Ariana, Aviana, and Thomas. We are the Miller family. We are a foster and adoptive family, and we are also US Missionaries, helping other foster and adoptive families. Before I tell you more about our ministry, I'd like to tell you the story of a young lady named Veronica. In high school, Veronica began to make bad choices, started hanging out with the wrong crowd, and not long after graduating high school, she found out that she was pregnant with twins. Veronica had her boys, and she left them with her mom and wanted to go on and live her party lifestyle. Her mom absolutely loved her grandchildren, but she didn't want to raise them. She just wanted to be their grandmother. So she began to look for a good Christian couple that would love the boys, would adopt them, and would raise them in church. Her mother asked my husband Sean and I to adopt them. We met the boys and we fell in love with them the second we met them. And so they went ahead, they moved into the house with us, and we had them for right at 9 months, and everything was absolutely perfect until we got a phone call. Veronica had never had her rights officially terminated, and she wanted her boys back. We had 30 minutes to say goodbye to the boys and take them back to their mom. It was by far the hardest thing that we have ever gone through. But what we did not know at the time, we found out later that Veronica had actually checked herself into a rehab, and there inside of that rehab had gotten clean, sober, and saved. There inside of that rehab, she began to pray and ask God if he would please let her have her kids back and be the mom that he had called for her to be. God knew that her baby faith could not take losing her boys. As a matter of fact, when we gave the boys back to her, they helped her grow in her faith. They would tell her things like, "Mommy, it's Sunday. We want to go to church. Mommy, we sing songs about Jesus. Mommy, we pray before we eat and pray before we go to bed." And they actually helped her grow in her walk with the Lord. And not only did God know that her faith couldn't take it, God had greater and bigger plans for our lives. Honestly, if I would have adopted those twins, that's probably where I would have stopped. We would have never became foster parents. We would have never became US missionaries. I would have never met the 5 kids that we have now. We would have never adopted Jordan and Eli. We would have never met our girls or brought our baby home from the hospital. With the twins and the 5 kids that we have now included, we've had a total of 13 children come in and through our home as a foster family, and we absolutely love it. And Veronica's doing fantastic. We still see the boys, we still babysit for her, and she's doing an amazing job of raising her children. We're so proud of her. In the United States, there are 400,000 children in the U.S. foster care system. We call them the modern day orphans. 400,000. That sounds like a really awful, impossible number, but I want to give you another number. In the United States, there are 350,000 evangelical churches. That means that if every single church had one foster family that had one, possibly two children, we could totally eliminate the orphan care crisis in America. God has already given us the answer to the orphan care crisis. It's His church. So as US missionaries, we are here to challenge and resource and equip churches to take care of foster and adoptive families. We want to reach out to the children and help the children who have been into foster care. We want to help support the foster families. Even though I am a foster mama and I believe with all of my heart this is what God has called for me to do and I love it, I will be honest, it is one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. And so for a foster family to have the support of a local church could be a game changer for them. And not only that, we also want to help those birth families. I know the feelings, believe me, as a foster mom, I understand that we talk about the birth families, we talk about the people who have abused their children, or neglected their children, or have chosen drugs over their children. And we kind of want to draw the line. We're not sure that we want to reach out and we want to minister to them. But I don't believe that that's the heart of God. I've met too many Veronicas before. I've seen moms and dads who have never heard about the love of Jesus Christ, and whenever they do hear about Him, it changes their lives, and they are set free from their addictions, and they are set free from the things that have been binding them down, and they are able to be amazing parents to their kids again. And so we are here to be a support to these foster and adoptive families through the local church. This morning, I want to bring a message to you that I have entitled, A Lot Worth Fighting For. A lot worth fighting for. In Genesis chapter 14, beginning in verse 11, it says, "And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. And he divided himself against them, he and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people." A lot worth fighting for. So this story actually picks up in the middle of a much larger story. At the very beginning, God had called Abraham to leave his home, to leave his friends, to leave his family, and to go out to a place that God was going to show him. So Abram halfway listened. He decided to go out. He left his home, but he also brought along a few family members. He brought along his father and his nephew Lot. And they started to go out, and along the way, his father eventually passed away. But there came a point to where Abraham had to go to his nephew Lot and tell him, "Hey, we have got to separate. I have too many servants, you have too many servants, we have too much livestock between us, and it's time for us to separate." And so he gave Lot the choice. He said, "Lot, whichever direction you want to go, you choose, you look around, you decide what you want to do, and whatever you want to do, I'll go the opposite direction. If you want to go north, I will go south. If you want to go to the left, I will go to the right. Whatever you want to do, Lot, this is your decision." So Lot began to look around, and it says that Lot looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah. And even though Lot knew that it was an awful, wicked place, Lot looked around and he said, "Hey, that looks very fertile, that the lands look really great, and I think that'd be a good place for me to go." And so Abraham let him. He let Lot go that direction. And because Lot chose to go to a wicked place like Sodom and Gomorrah, we pick up in this story right here where Lot has found himself in the middle of a bad situation. That there were all of these different kingdoms, all of these different armies that were fighting with each other. There were these 7 different kingdoms, and they were all fighting each other. And there came a point to where Lot was taken captive. He was taken as a prisoner of war, and he was taken off. And so Lot was taken, his family was taken, all of his items were taken away. And somebody found out about it, they escaped, and they went and they found Abraham. And they go to Abraham and they tell him that, hey, your nephew, the one that you've been taking care of all this time, this one that you've always kind of been trying to look out for, he's always messing up, he's always making bad choices. Well, he's messed up again. He's found himself in this really bad situation. Now he's a prisoner of war. Abraham, I just thought you should know. And so I'm going to be really honest. Whenever I read through this story, part of me just wants to be like, you know what? Lot, you made that choice. Lot, you could have gone anywhere, but you decided to go to Sodom and Gomorrah. Part of me wants to tell Lot, like, one of those things, like, you've made your bed, now lay in it. This was your decision to make, and you've got to learn from those lessons. You've got to learn that lesson from those bad choices that you've made. And I don't think any of us would blame Abraham for having that type of attitude. But that wasn't the attitude that Abraham had. That wasn't Abraham's heart. And I believe that it wouldn't be God's heart either. That Abraham, if you look at this, it says that Abraham says, I have to go after my brother. He doesn't even call him his nephew. He says, I have to go after my brother. And it says that he went and he pursued after him, that he actively went and fought for Lot because he loved Lot. And so when I talk about our foster and adoptive ministry to foster families and foster kids, everybody gets really excited about that. Yes, we want to help foster kids. Yes, we want to help support foster families. But when we start to talk about birth families, that's when we get a little shy and we're like, I don't know if I want to help them. I don't know if I want to minister to them. I don't know if they are worth fighting for. But I'm here to tell you that they are. And I also just want to say that, if it weren't for the love and the grace of God, I don't know where I would be. It's really easy to sit inside of a church and to say, well, there's no way that I would abuse my kids. There's no way that I would choose drugs over my kids or that I would neglect my children. But can I tell you, without the grace of God, I don't know where any of us would be. Growing up, I had a cousin that I was very close to, and we grew up in very similar situations. Both of our parents were not in church. My parents, when I was growing up, weren't saved. Neither were her parents. They both made bad choices, and we were in a situation where it wasn't the best upbringing. But around middle school, I started to go to church on the church bus. Right before high school started, I really got saved. I got filled with the Holy Ghost at a kids camp, and I was sold out to my faith. After graduating in high school, I went into an internship program where I got my preaching credentials. By the time I was 21, I was going into full-time ministry as a youth pastor. And now I'm a US Missionary helping foster and adoptive families. My cousin didn't make the same choices that I made. And now, today, she literally lives 2 streets away from me. But she has gone to prison multiple times for drugs and for abusing her children. Her children are in the foster care system. We were raised very similarly, but as we are here today, we are both on different sides of this fight. I am fighting to help kids and to help foster families, and she has lost her kids. And I tell you that story because I want you to realize that that can be any of us. Making those choices, doing those things, and choosing other things over our kids, that could be any of us without the grace of God. And these people are worth fighting for. I told you the testimony, I told you the story of Veronica. That I believe that there are Veronicas out there that just need to hear the love of Jesus Christ, and it could totally and completely change their lives. And they are worth seeking after. They are worth fighting for. So not only do we want to help the birth families, but we also want to help support our foster and adoptive families. Even though I was called to foster, I believe that this is what God has called for me to do 100%. I will be honest, it is also one of the hardest things that I have ever done. And so if our foster families and if our adoptive families could just have the support of a local church, it could totally change their lives. Here in our area in Escambia and Santa Rosa counties, the foster parents last typically less than 1 year. They become a foster family, and by the end of the year, of year one, they are ready to close their doors. They are done. But if we had the support of local churches helping these families, then they could continue to say yes to taking kids into their homes and into their lives. They could continue to say yes for longer if we could give them the help and the support that they need. And so this is actually a ministry. And this is one of the things that I love to talk to people about, because people feel like I'm not called to be a US missionary. I'm not called to be a preacher or to help in children's church. So they feel like they can't be a part of ministry. They feel like they can't be used by God. But some of the things that I want to talk to you about, helping support these foster and adoptive families, is actually a huge ministry. So things like cooking them a meal, so that way they can focus on spending time with their kiddos, especially when they get a new placement. They're trying to spend time trying to learn that child, trying to build a relationship with them so the child feels safe in their home and feels protected. If they didn't have to worry about cooking a meal for their entire family, or maybe they just took a newborn in the middle of the night, if there was somebody there to greet them in the morning with a cup of coffee, or to help babysit the kids for just a couple of hours a week, or maybe even once a month, to give the foster family some rest and where they can spend time and with their spouse, and to help encourage their relationship. That way they can continue to say yes. And so bringing us again to this story that I read you about Abraham and Lot, that's what I love about this, is it says that Abraham, that he looked around his household and he used the servants that were born in his house, and he used them to go after and to fight for Lot and to save Lot. They used what was already in their household. And so it says that Abraham had 318 trained servants. And that sounds really cool until you think about it was 318 servants compared to 7 different armies. These were impossible odds. Not only that, it says that they were trained, and that sounds really cool until you think about what they must have been trained to do. They were not a trained militia. They were not a trained army. They were trained to be servants. They were trained to take care of livestock. They were shepherds. They were taking care of animals. What kind of weapons could they have possibly had? They had sticks. They didn't have swords and all these other things that these other armies had. But Abraham, he looks at his servants and he says, I'm going to use what was born in my house, and I'm going to use what is already in our hands, and that's going to bring us this victory. God is going to be with us, and we are going to get this victory. And I believe that's what everybody inside of a local church can do. Is, you know what, you might not be called to be a minister. You might not be called to be behind a pulpit or to work in the nursery. But what do you already have in your hands? What has God already blessed you with? And then how can you use that to resource other people? That maybe it's cooking. Start cooking meals for foster and adoptive families. Maybe it's just being a prayer partner. I'm here to tell you that I have some prayer partners in my life, and more than I have such an amazing support team that helps me in so many ways. But the thing that I love the most and the thing that I need the most are those prayer partners, those people who call me and they're like, hey, what do your babies need this week? How can I specifically be praying for your family? Let me know when your court dates are so that way I can be praying for that judge. Let me know your birth parents. Let me know their names so I can be calling out their names before God and praying for them to get saved. And those people, they are able to surround us and help us, and they are the biggest ministry to our lives. And I believe that this is one of the biggest lies that the devil tries to tell us, is that God can't use you, that you're not good enough to preach, or you're not good enough to teach or to lead a small group, or whatever the situation may be. But I believe that God has already given you what you need to help. If God has given us the command to take care of widows and orphans, if God has given us the command to take care of these children, that I believe, just like Abraham, we've just got to look and see, what do we have in our house? What do we have in our hands? And we just need to surrender it to God. God, I don't think that 318 servants is very much. I don't think the training to be a servant or to be a shepherd is very much. But God, if you can use this, I surrender it to you. And I will let you use me. And whatever I have in my hand, I will let you use it. And if we would be willing to surrender to God like that, I believe that you would be amazed to see what God could do in and through you to help our foster and adoptive families. So, not only do we want to help the birth families, not only do we want to help support our foster and adoptive families, but the reason why we're all here is we want to help the kids. We want to help these foster children. I can't even begin to tell you the things that some of our kiddos have been through. Things that me as a grown adult couldn't imagine, the things that they have faced, the abuse that they have faced, the trauma that they have faced. We have had a child as young as 4 years old be diagnosed with PTSD. We have seen some kids come through so many things, and I could just tell you story after story. I could tell you the story of our Alex. He was our very first official placement. And I remember sitting in my foster care classes. We have to do classes before they let you get the kids and do trainings. And I remember sitting in that training as they were telling us how some of these kids are going to come with absolutely nothing, or they'll come with their clothes in a trash bag. And I thought that they were just giving us the worst case scenario. I thought they were just trying to scare us a little bit, and it wouldn't really be that bad. Until the day we got our Alex, who literally came with absolutely nothing. He had a pair of cutoff shorts and a pair of shoes that were too tight for his feet. And when he was with the placement team, as they were looking for a home to place him with, they gave him a little sucker that had a toy on it. And that's all that he came with. The very first night that we had him, we had sat down at a family dinner. We had the table set, and we had all sat down together, and he began to look around, and his eyes got huge. And he was like, "It's Thanksgiving." But it wasn't Thanksgiving. It was May on a random Tuesday night. And that was just a regular family dinner for us. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't anything special. It was just a typical every night family dinner for us. But there was so much food on that table, he thought that it was Thanksgiving. I could tell you the story of Sam. He is the foster child that we have had for the least amount of time. We had Sam for maybe a whole 6 hours, if even that. It was late one night on a school night, and I had already gotten all of my kiddos. We had 5 kiddos at that time as well. I had already gotten all of our kiddos fed, bathed, in bed, getting ready for school the next morning. And I was getting into bed, and I decided to check Facebook real quick before I called it a night. And we have a private page that we have just for foster families to be on. And somebody had posted in the foster parent page that there was an emergency removal that happened late at night after hours. They had 3 kids that were removed for the very first time, and they needed a place to stay. I looked at my husband, and he just kind of rolled his eyes. He was like, "Well, just call them. Just call placement, call the office, see if they found anybody yet. Maybe they found a place already." So I called the placement team and said, "Hey, I seen this on Facebook. Have you guys found a place for the kids yet?" And they had found a home for the 2 older children, but there was a little boy, 3 years old, separated from his siblings, separated from everything he had ever known in just a matter of hours. And they had no place for him to go. And he was about to spend his very first night in foster care in the office sleeping with a caseworker. So I told her, I said, "Well, we at our house, we're out of room. We're out of beds. I do not have an extra bed for this child, but I have a couch. Would it be okay if he slept on the couch just for tonight?" The caseworker said, "Yes, absolutely." I told her, I said, "Well, I have 5 other kids. My minivan is literally full. I do not have an extra seat in my minivan. Somebody would have to come and pick him up early in the morning before I have to leave to take the other kids to school." The caseworker said, "I'll make sure it happens. Somebody be there at 7 to pick him up." So I said, "Okay, we'll take him." So it was about 1 o'clock in the morning by the time they got there because he was being removed from several counties away. So it took them a while to get to us. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they put this frightened 3-year-old boy in my arms and just turned around and left. And there he was. We were actually going through a cold snap, and he had shown up in a pair of shorts and a tank top and some flip-flops. And he was shivering from the cold and just absolutely scared to death, had no idea what was going on. So I laid him on the couch, and he was scared to let me near him, but he was also scared to let me out of his sight. And he was so frightened that he would start to kind of relax and start to fall asleep, and he would just jerk himself back awake. He couldn't let himself calm down to really get some good rest. He finally got to fall asleep for a couple of hours, and I had to get him up early the next morning. Typically, when we have kids come in for emergency removals or we're just keeping them overnight, I like to make sure that I wash their clothes because I don't know the last time their clothes got washed or how long before they get to go to a more permanent foster home. So I like to wash their clothes. I didn't have time to do that, so I actually dug out some old clothes that we had, the twins that we had. I got some of their old clothes and got him a pair of pants and a jacket, got him some new shoes. I made sure I got up early so he could have a bath and make sure that he was clean because, again, don't know the last time he had a bath, don't know the next time that he was going to be able to actually be in a home and have things there for him. Made sure he had breakfast and snacks because reality is he was probably getting ready to go sit in the office for hours until they could find a foster home that could take him maybe for one night, maybe for the weekend, hopefully for longer than that. And so we only had him for a matter of 6 hours. As a foster mama, my hands are absolutely tied. I have no more bedrooms. I have no more beds. I have no more room in my minivan to take any more kids. I wish that I could help kids like Sam, but that's why we became US Missionaries. Is so that way we're not just taking care of Sam's for just a matter of 6 hours, but we can help take care of those kids long term. We can help there be more foster families, or recruit foster families. We can make sure those foster families are supported so they can continue to take them in. We make sure that we minister to birth families so that way they can get their children back and they can keep their children back instead of them coming back into the system again and again. That's why we are U.S. missionaries, to help these families, to help those foster kids by helping their foster families and helping their birth families. But the foster child that I really want to tell you about this morning is our teenage girl that we had. We had a teenage girl for about 6 months, and she was hard. I remember at the time I was a youth pastor, and she had to go to church with me every single day, bless her heart. She got from where she was kind of living on her own, doing whatever she wanted, and she got stuck with us, and she had to go to church like every single day when I worked at the church office, and it was really tough for her. And she was also very quiet. She didn't hardly say anything to us. She really liked our younger kids. Come to find out, she had a bunch of younger siblings that she was separated from, so she liked the little kids. It reminded her of her little brothers and sisters. But she didn't ever really talk to us very much. And she started going to church with us. She would go to youth service with us, would go to church on Sundays, and she eventually got to the point to where it really looked like she was paying attention in church. She would even go down to the altar and she would pray. She didn't ever want anybody praying with her. If anybody ever tried to go pray with her, she would shy away, go back to her seat. But she would go and she would pray by herself. And so one afternoon, we were leaving the church. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was headed home, and it was just me and her in the car. And she began to open up to me and talk to me, and so I was so excited. I was like, okay, this is our breakthrough moment. And she began to share. She said, Miss Jenny, she said, I want you to know I don't talk a lot to you because every other word out of my mouth is a cuss word. She said, that's how I was raised. That's how I talked to my mom. That's how I talked to my grandma. That's how I talked to my teachers when I was in school, and nobody bothered me about it. She said, but I know that's not what you guys do in your home, and I respect you enough not to do that. So I told her, yes, I appreciate that, and I understand, and I don't mind you being to yourself. That's fine. She said, but I want to ask you a question. She said, I've been going to church with you guys, and I've, I've gone to the altar and I've started to pray. I've started to talk to God, and I have. I asked him to forgive me of all the stuff that I've done that I shouldn't have done. And I know that I'm still messing up. I know I'm still making mistakes, but I'm trying every day. And I see it. I'm getting less and less. I'm cussing less and less. I'm getting angry less and less. And I'm beginning to see that I'm getting better. She said, but I don't act like you. And I don't know. Am I saved? And I said, so you've asked God into your heart? She said, yes. I said, you've asked him to forgive you of your sins? Yes. I said, you're trying to be more like Jesus every day? She said, yes. I said, baby, that's it. I said, you're saved. And she was really excited to find out that she was saved. And she began to share with me, she said, I'm not mad at my mom. My mom was just raising me the way that she was raised. And all of my aunts and uncles, they're all in jail. They're all in trouble too. And all of my brothers and sisters, all of my cousins, were all in foster care. She said, I'm not mad at my mom though, because I know she just doesn't know better. She said, but I'm going to be better. Whenever I have kids, whenever I have a family, I'm going to take them to church. I'm going to raise them in church. I'm not going to talk to them the way that my mom talks to me. And she said, not only that, she said, I want to be a foster mom one day. She began, how young can I be and still be a foster mom? She was 17 at the time. And she was excited about being a foster mom because she didn't want to take in the cute babies. She wanted to take in other teenagers like her and tell them, that even though they're in a bad place right now, that there's hope and that things can get better. And she wanted to be a hope for those foster families. And I'm here to tell you right now that all of eternity is forever changed because of that one young lady. Because she made a decision that whenever I have kids, I am not going to treat them the way that I was treated. And my kids will be taken care of. And my kids will go to church. And my kids will not be in foster care. That is a generational curse that is stopped right there. That we talk about how she's going to be a foster mom one day. And she began to reach out to her friends and tell her friends, when she was with us, she actually had a friend that died of a drug overdose while she was staying with us. And she began to reach out to her other friends and tell her other friends that, hey, you don't have to choose drugs the way that he did. And she began to witness to them and tell them about Christ. And I am telling you that so much more was saved. We thought that we were taking care of one teenage girl, but I'm telling you, so much more was saved that day. And it comes full circle right here to this story that I started with in the book of Genesis, chapter 14. It says that Abraham went after one. Abraham went to save Lot. But once he got to doing it, he seen that there was a lot worth fighting for. Yes, that there was one person worth fighting for, but look at how much was actually saved. And verse 16, it says that Abraham brought back all the goods. Not only did he bring back all the goods, but he also brought again Lot. Not only did he bring back all the goods and bring back Lot, but he also brought back all of Lot's family. And not only Lot's family, but he brought back everybody. Abraham went in after one and ended up saving everybody. There is a lot worth fighting for. That yes, maybe that it looks like one church taking care of one foster family, but I'm telling you, there's so much more at stake that you go in fighting after one. Maybe it's going to be a teenage girl that's going to change all of eternity because she gets so excited about God and those generational curses are broken. Maybe it's going to be ministering to that one foster family that feels broken and feels like they don't have the strength to say yes to one more child, but because your church supports them, they continue to take in another one and they continue to say yes again and again. Maybe it's going to be helping one birth family, one mom or one dad that feels like they're not fit to take care of their kids, but because they hear about the forgiveness and the love and the hope of Jesus Christ, they decide that they can change their lives forever. There is a lot worth fighting for. This morning, I want to take a minute to pray for you guys, but I also want you to stop and to use this time to ask God what he wants to do inside of your life. Maybe you are here and you are hearing this morning, and God's beginning to deal with you about possibly saying yes and becoming a foster family, taking children into your home. That would be amazing, and I would love to help you get started with that. Maybe you're saying there is no way that I can foster, there's no way that I could adopt, and that's okay. Not everybody can, not everybody should, but we are called to do something. Begin to pray and ask God, how can I help a child in need? How can I help a foster family? How can I support them? Like Abraham, look and see what's in your house. What has God already given you? What are the abilities and the talents that he has already given you? And how can you use those to support these families? Or maybe, like I said, it's just being a prayer partner. It's pursuing after these birth families and seeking God and seeing them saved and praying for them. So I want to pray today, and I want you to not rush through this moment, but to ask God to really speak to you today about what you can do to help these foster and adoptive families and children. Dear Jesus, I thank you for this opportunity to speak and to share, God, not just my heart, not just Abraham's heart, but God, I believe your heart, to share your heart for these children and these families and these people that are in need. God, that I pray that right now as people are stopping and they are just asking you to direct them and to lead them and to show them what you are calling for them to do, I pray that you would. I pray that you would make it abundantly clear. God, maybe it's bringing a child into their home. God, maybe it's becoming a foster family. Maybe it's supporting somebody else. Maybe it's being a babysitter for a child and pouring into that child. Maybe they can't bring them into their homes long term, but they can support them and pour into them and mentor them for just a couple of hours a month or a week. God, that I pray, Lord, that you would just deal with them, that you would show them what they can do to be a part of this ministry. That, God, that this isn't something that you're just calling for me to do. This isn't something that you're just calling for the church to do. But, God, that we are the church and that you are calling each and every single one of us to be a part of this ministry in some way or another. God, that I pray that you would show us. God, that I pray that this morning, if there be anybody that be lost this morning, that maybe they've stumbled across this and they were interested and they decided to listen in, but God, they've been running far from you. God, that I pray that you would speak to them this morning, just like a lot is worth fighting for, just like these people that I have been talking about, just like they are worth fighting for. God, that they are too. That Jesus, that you love them, that you died for them, God, and that you desire to have a relationship with them. And I pray that you would bring them close to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for listening to my heart and my message this morning. I would love to continue to connect with you guys. As US missionaries, obviously, we need prayer partners, people that will pray with us and help us as we do this ministry. We also need financial support. And even beyond that, we need volunteers. We don't just need money, we need volunteers to help us as we are ministering to these foster and adoptive families and children and birth families right here in our local area. And so we would love to connect with you guys. We would love to partner with you, and we would love to serve with you. Our web address is familymissionfield.com, and I would love for you to go there and connect with us in all of those ways. Thank you.